Welcome to our podcast today. Ask Aaron and Ask EJ. This is Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source. Good morning, guys. EJ, what's on tap for today? What
Well,
knowledge and nuggets are you gonna dispel out there today?
Aaron, we've been busy this summer, so I'm going to tell everybody welcome back to our Ask Aaron, Ask EJ. But we've been busy. You've had surgery. I've had
Yeah.
stuff that we're trying to get together. So we're back with you, people. Our subject today, our topic, is something that is mind blowing to a lot of athletes, parents, and groups of people out there today. And our subject is the high school athlete. How are they being recruited in 2025, 2026? And things have changed quite a bit, Aaron. And we need to understand what the landscape looks like out there for these high school athletes. And we're not only talking about baseball, Aaron, we're talking about a lot of sports. What I have noticed as school is starting up again and they're getting the collegiate athletes back on campus is the lack of freshmen on these rosters now, especially in baseball. I'm seeing two, three athletes that a lot of Division One and Division Two schools are bringing on campus. So you're wondering where are they getting their athletes? Well, as we know, in the past 3 to 4 years, the transfer portal, junior college and actually bounce backs are fulfilling these rosters now. So that's our topic today. I think it's interesting. I think it's enlightening to parents that have high school athletes out there. They're trying to get their athletes to places, and it's been a difficult summer for many of these high school athletes that are very, very good ball players, Aaron. I mean, they're talented guys and gals, because we are talking about sports.
Mhm.
But if we're just talking baseball, talented players that are just saying, well, we don't have a spot for you right now. And it's the fall. November 12th is the first signing period. How many of those high school athletes are actually going to sign in that first period, Aaron? That's the
Mm.
question.
Okay. No, it's good that we revisit this topic. We've talked about it before, and you guys can also go back into our library and see how we approached it, over the last couple of years. 'Cause it seems like this is a subject that always comes up, and I guess it always comes up because the landscape keeps changing.
Yes.
With all the developments with NIL and now, changing in roster spots and all these things. It looks like it's starting to even out a little bit, but now we're actually, I think, starting to see the effects of some of these changes. And like you said, now you're actually starting to see, you know, these roster spots where there are only two or three, freshmen.
Right.
And so, it's good for us to have this conversation so that way we can kind of always help you guys pivot as the landscape changes and you guys can make your changes accordingly. Obviously, nothing's gonna be forever, be static because it seems like they're always trying to,
Right.
make some changes or do some things with this. But at least for the time being, you can redirect if you're not going in the right direction or putting your resources in the right place. Um, but yeah, it seems like the screws are tightening. And from a training standpoint, I see it because, athletes are coming to me and everything is important.
Yes.
Your playing stats, your grades, the financial packages that you might be available for, your metrics. I've got, kids now in situations where coaches are saying, look, we like this, we like that, we like this, but you don't have this 60 time or you don't have this 30 time. And they're kind of holding kids at arm's length because of maybe one metric. And, that's kind of hard, but, you have to check all the boxes now.
Yeah.
I think. Or if you're again, if you're that average collegiate athlete, if you're that exceptionally gifted athlete, maybe you're not going to be in that boat. But if you're the average collegiate athlete, you've got to check every box. You can't leave nothing to chance. And I always tell the kids, excuse me, you've got to try and develop a plus ability. One of those categories, there has to be a plus. There has to be an above average. Otherwise, again, what's to, have a coach choose you over the other 10 or 12 shortstops that they're looking at?
Yeah.
And so I know that takes time, and that's why I think those things should be identified early and worked on early so that by the time you are a senior or that junior, you have that one plus ability that also makes you stand out. So just from a training standpoint, that's kind of, the strategy that I've adopted. It's not just getting to the standards anymore. Um, it's actually having to be past those standards at least in one category. So,
Yeah, I think you said something very valuable as I was back in North Carolina with USA Baseball and really for 3 weeks there and talking to college coaches, just talking to coaches across America and asking them, and we're talking from the West Coast, the East Coast, South, North, et cetera, et cetera. Um, we're talking about this. And when you said, it has to be above the standard, you're absolutely correct. And you're talking about one skill. We're talking now that schools want to see 2 to 3 skills be above average for that high school athlete. Now, hello, I know this is mind-boggling because there used to be this thing where I got these freshmen, I could redshirt them, I could get them 30 to 50 at bats their first year, depending on midweek games, not conference games, and get them some experience. That doesn't play anymore. It's like you need to be prepared as a freshman to play college baseball. It's not like we're gonna wait on you.
yeah,
You know, it goes back to what I call the D3 mentality. So many roster spots, no athletic money, but academic money. We need a freshman ready now. That's what the Division One and Division Two schools are adopting. Is that old D3 mentality? Is that freshmen have to play, they have to be ready. Let's get them in there. Well, those skills need to be really above average now, and they have to be prepared and ready to go. And I think this starts a little earlier because I'm going to dive into another, I'm going to kind of offshoot here for a second, Aaron.
hmm
I'm going to back up into your freshman year in high school for all those freshmen that are out there and parents who are listening. Get your kids ready now with their body. Don't wait till their junior year. Some people may come into the shop, Aaron, and go, "Hey, look, I've got to get these numbers, like you said, and it's now." That's too late. And you may even argue with me that it needs to be earlier, which we both agree. But minimum, you need to be ready at least and be in a training program minimally by your freshman year, and that's the minimum standards. You and I believe that athletes should be in there earlier because of
yeah.
PE and all that stuff into the gym.
It's
And I want you to talk about this because I think this is important.
yeah, it's the fight that I'm having more and more often. And I just had the conversation with a parent um, just last week, and his kid's been coming to me just about a year. It's probably been about the year mark, and I told him it's time for resistance training,
Mm,
and there was pushback, and I'm like, there's nowhere I can take your kid without him becoming more physical and
right.
stronger. And I'm not talking about, full blown, weight training and everything, because again, resistance training, there's a lot of modalities. There's weights, of course, there's medicine balls, there's bands, there's body weight. So there's a lot of different ways. But I think a lot of parents, one, ignore this. Two, they're still listening to the old wives' tales that are out there about kids in weight training and resistance
Mhm.
training, and so they're frozen.
Right.
And my advice to that parent was, you don't have to take my word for it. You know, go do the research. But that's the reality is that a lot of these kids lack the physicality that is required. And then, like you said, they become a sophomore or something and they're undersized and now all of a sudden they're trying to catch up.
Hmm.
And you can't just catch up that quickly. It's not like, okay, well, this next year I'm going to start weight training. No,
Right.
there's a progression that you should be able to do if you want to do it correctly and responsibly, that you take the athlete through. And yeah, so that means at maybe sixth grade, and I don't want to get too far off the top of
Right.
subject, but at sixth grade, you're doing body weight exercise and resistance exercises. Maybe at the seventh grade, you're doing banding and medicine ball and, light dumbbells. And at the eighth grade, you're doing the introduction into weight training,
Okay.
where you're learning more of the basic lifts that they're going to run into at the high school level. So
Right.
that way you were developing the body slowly, but we're layering on all of these resistance forms of training that set the foundation so that the kid, one, can do the lifts and execute them properly so that they have the knowledge and can do them without risk to their body or trying to get into this whole accelerated plan
Right.
that then ends up getting them hurt. Because that's really what happens. And that's what I had to tell the parent. It's like, there's nothing wrong with any of those modalities. The problem is the programming. You
Mhm.
jump online and you follow some idiot who's written a program for a 23-year-old, and then you
Right.
try and put your kid through that, and he's in the sixth grade, or you go to some, weightlifting facility where they're just going to put a workout up on the board and say, okay, go and do this. And they're not taking them through the proper process of getting their body ready, precursor things to do the lifts. So there's nothing wrong. It's like saying, you know, driving a car is dangerous. Yeah, it is if you don't know how to drive it.
Right.
So
Right. Exactly.
you can't blame the car, it's the driver. Just like, the whole thing about guns. Are guns dangerous? Well, they are in the hands of inexperienced, irresponsible people. It's the same thing with any training modality.
Right.
The evil is not in the implement itself, it's in the administration and the implementation of how you're using it and the irresponsibility that, goes along with that.
Right.
But, to circle back to what we're talking about,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to start these kids earlier because at least that gives you a buffer. So if your kid is up to speed, no problem. Take the foot off the gas, no
Right.
worries. But if they're not, you can't say, I get parents who want to say, well, we need to gain, 10 pounds in the next 4 months, or 20 pounds, they want to see them from 160 to 190. It's like,
It's a
yeah, you
lot.
can put that weight on a scale, but it doesn't mean it's going to be quality weight. And
Mm.
and even if you get there, at what price did you pay? Is the athlete stiff now? Did you do all the tendon and ligament stuff that you need to do so that the muscles aren't outpacing these tendon and ligaments, and then the kid gets hurt? You know? So I think at least having these conversations early at the sixth grade kind of help you navigate this and set things up properly. Because again, when you're looking at the environment of recruiting now and who they're taking, an 18-year-old isn't competing against other 18-year-olds. An 18-year-old is competing against 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, some instances 24-year-olds,
Yes.
and those bodies are or can be light years apart. Now throw in that you're a late bloomer. You're really behind the eight ball.
Hmm.
So that's just the reality of it. And, either you're going to do some things to to mitigate that situation, or you're not, but you can put your head in the sand and say, oh no, well, I'm not going to do this, or we're going to wait until they're, you know, 16 or 14 or whatever. Fine.
Right, right. I want to piggyback off that because you said something I thought was really important there. Um, Basically, you heard this term bigger, stronger, faster, but I'm going to add something to that smarter. And you said that smarter. Use a smart way to do things. You don't put all that weight on a person and think there's not going to be any ramifications without doing what you said, the tendon work and all that other stuff that you need to do to in order for that to function effectively in that sport. And I think that's what gets lost is like, oh yeah, we want them 15 pounds heavier. Okay, but is the player going to lose their athleticism? And I think when you're talking about this high school athlete and how he's being recruited today, coaches say he's got to put on some more weight. That's going to help him be a better collegiate athlete. And then the high school player goes and does that and says, okay, I put the weight on, but and that was like that's the only thing they heard, but the real message is that weight was put on so you can be able to compete at the same athletic ability you had before, and that gets lost in the shuffle. So
Yeah.
when that high school athlete's being recruited, they need to understand that this is how it's being done. It's just don't have to wait like here I am, I'm here, coach. I,
Yeah.
I got the weight or I got the running time. Well, how does that time equate to your athleticism on the field to perform at a high level? And that's what people don't really understand about this, Aaron,
Yeah.
is that you can hit these benchmarks,
Right.
but you still have to have that athletic ability to function at a
Right.
high level.
Yeah, and that's why the chasing metrics is so misleading, because things are, these coaches say these things, and they don't kind of go into context like you just did. So you got guys who, okay, I finally hit, they chase 90, they chase 90, chase
Right.
90, but they still can't pitch, or they still don't have
Ability.
two other pitches, and it's like, no, everything had, all boats in your sea of abilities have to rise,
Right.
not just one little dinghy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I I think you said that really really well. As I look and hear and experience this, because I experienced this a lot this summer, as I went to these very elite baseball tournaments and played this summer, I saw less and less college coaches at these events unless it was a top level event. I mean, top level event, then I would see a lot of coaches. But I saw a lot less coaches mill around usual. And I would call them and ask them, "Hey, where are you at this week? Where you been? Where are you leading to? How many days you going to be here?" So the coaches used to spend like example, USA Baseball Championships, right? Well known. Everybody goes to the West Champs or the East Champs.
Hmm.
And you would see at a complex, and I'm going to talk about four fields and a tower, okay? That's one complex. You could see anywhere from 20 to 35 coaches easy.
Hmm.
This summer, 5 to 10.
Hmm.
Asking them, "Hey, we're out watching collegiate players that are in the portal."
I
And
was just,
I
yep.
am going, interesting. The recruiting period, and we could talk about this later, this is another subject, and how much has changed. And that will be another subject. But they're like, oh, we're out in the portal looking at guys. Like, there's over so many athletes in the portal that if we go to this one league, we can see all of them.
Right.
They may just sit in that league for 2 weeks and just go there and watch all these athletes come through the portals. They might see 50, 60 guys in game situations against other collegiate athletes that are throwing effectively that they would see in their own league. And they can say, now I can get a real assessment rather than go to a elite tournament, USA Baseball Championships,
Right.
and see an athlete that is facing a guy throwing 80
Yeah.
versus a guy
That's
throwing 95.
that's a game changer. Parents, I don't know if you guys quite got what he said, but basically, That's a game changer in the sense of all of you parents who are flying all over the country, going from tournament to tournament, spending all of this money and thinking your kid's going to get seen. Those coaches aren't out there anymore because the portal provides such a higher quality athlete on average. That's where they're going. They're going to the portal and they're going to these events where these older athletes are. They're not at your, you're not at your showcases and they're not at your tournaments. And they're spending their time evaluating those guys first. And the only younger athletes that they're looking at are those at the very elite showcases and so that speaks to me as a parent. It's like, okay, if I've got an athlete, high schooler, he's got to one, only be able to compete at elite level showcases if there's a possibility for him to be seen. Two, either go to some kind of camp or instructional thing at a collegiate institution, right? To be seen.
Right.
And that's it. What other outlets are there?
Those are the outlets, it seems to be, Aaron. I mean, I see it like we play in these elite competitions. We go out and play in tournaments so I can assess
Right.
and get our guys better competition locally.
Mhm.
Okay. Because locally it's tougher. You got to go out nationally to find the guys throwing a velocity or hitting the ball harder or running faster to find out, do our athletes compete in that environment first
Mhm.
before they can go to this next environment? If they can dominate in this environment, then they can go to those two places you said. And I think it's important. I'm chasing competition, the
Right.
best competition. So what
So
you
now to me, that speaks to me in saying that all of these weekend tournaments that you fly to and everything really are developmental now. They're not opportunities. Do you know what I'm saying? They're not places where
Yes.
you're going to get seen. So your focus for those sorts of outlets should be that, okay, we want to try and get the best competition we can so that we can have an assessment of how our athlete is developing. But it's not, so in other words, the days of paying to be seen are basically over. Paying to play in this tournament here, paying to play in this tournament there for exposure is rapidly declining. And so that means to me, you got to be more selective about the tournaments you're playing and how much time you're spending playing those tournaments and resources you're putting towards that because you're not going to you maybe more than likely you're not going to get the return on that you would maybe have in the past. Am I correct by saying that?
practice more than you play. Okay,
Mhm.
it's along those lines. And practice now becomes critical. It's not like show up, let's get our reps in. How about show up and compete and dominate in practice? So when you get in these scenarios, in these games later on, you know how it feels. You can't just turn it on at a tournament and think, oh, I went to practice, I'm good. All that's important now, and it has its piece, it has its layer, and let's wake up and understand what that really means now, Aaron. And you're right. I mean, it's to that point now. You just can't just go somewhere and say, I'm gaining experience. Every time you go to a place, it's important. It's not just showing up to show up. So that's our 2 cents on that. Hey, Aaron, you got anything else regarding that the high school athlete and the way they're being recruited today in 2025, 2026?
No, I just want, parents to wake up to the realities of what they're facing and step back and assess your kid and say, where are we at on this spectrum of where we got to be and make the adjustments. And the adjustments might mean playing more, it might mean training more. I don't know. But you've got to be nimble and and have a realistic view of what you should be doing with your athlete. Otherwise, that clock is ticking, and like I said, it's not an even playing ground. It's just not. So you
Right.
got to figure out how you're gonna navigate it and get your edge. So
Well said today, Aaron. And out there, listen to us. We're back at you now. It's the start of the fall for us. It kind of starts our new season, Aaron. But I just want to let everybody know, hey, tune in to Ask Aaron and Ask DJ, and look forward to getting your comments and anything you have, any questions that we can answer for you on our podcast. Hey, this is Coach EJ, the brand.
it's culture and the source. We'll see you.